Okay, so this lesson is on writing introductions for an essay. So now that we have our body paragraphs, one for each source text that we're using, one for each myth, then we need to add an introduction. It will go as your first paragraph. So you would simply, after your heading, hit enter to put space between your heading and your body paragraph, and then start typing your introduction. The introduction is your opening paragraph. It should grab the reader's attention by being interesting and creative, but still short. And it should let the reader know what you're going to write about. So what's the topic of your composition or your essay? Those are similar words. So to organize your introduction, you want to start off by introducing the topic with your attention-getting sentence, okay? So that first sentence is kind of the hook of your essay, right? You want to grab the reader's attention with it, but you still want it to be related to whatever you're writing about. It should be related to your topic, so it should introduce the idea to the reader immediately what you're going to write about. So several ways to write that first sentence. One is to just define the topic, right? So you could pick an important word with regards to the lesson you're writing about, or the effects of the god or goddess's action, obedience, forgiveness, respect, etc. And just write the definition. Literally, you just write the word dash definition. The other option is to choose a character or aspect of the text that relates to the lesson or what's going to happen, how the God's going to affect your character, the events. And you start with a general statement or fact about it, right? So if you're writing about respect or making mistakes or following directions or finding love, right? So you can just start with a general statement. Respecting others is a common lesson in mythology. In life, everyone makes mistakes, even heroes. If you were looking at whether God or goddess's actions were fair, maybe you want to say, even gods, right? Make bad decisions. How important is following directions? You can ask a question. So you can do it either as a statement or as a question. Who doesn't hope to find a loved one one day or fear losing a loved one? So you can do either statement or question, but it should relate in general to kind of the theme that you're looking at in both myths, okay? Once you've done this, then the very next sentence is going to expand on that and tie it into the actual text that you're going to use, okay? So we're going to answer the question or expand on it, right? One hero that makes a mistake, a god who found a god that insists on being treated with respect, right? Or respect is particularly important to one Greek goddess, something like that, right? So you kind of tie it into whatever you're going to look at next, and then you specifically identify each myth you're going to be using by title. You have to put the titles in your introduction, both of them. You should also indicate which writing prompt you picked by either identifying the lesson that you're going to look at in each myth or the god or goddess that you're looking at in each myth, okay? And then summarize the task or the writing prompt. So some examples of how to do that. Step 3 would be kind of like your concluding sentence in your introduction. The authors of each myth developed the lesson through changes in the character. The lessons of the the lesson of the stories is revealed to the reader through the consequences the character faces. The lesson of the story is gradually revealed through the changes the character experiences because of events. Those are all very similar, just slightly different ways of saying it. Hades' actions affected these characters in lasting ways. Hera's actions were profoundly unfair to both Echo and Hercules. Okay, something like that. So how does it look? I have 3 examples to go through, and you can use these as a guideline. So this one is for writing prompt 1. I start with a question. So who hasn't failed at following directions sometime in life? Everyone has forgotten instructions occasionally. The ancient Greeks believed it was important to be obedient to the God's king's parents' and obedience was a common focus in their mythology. So this is my attention grabber, right? Starts with a question. It kind of answers the question by saying, of course, everyone has, right? And then tied it into the ancient Greeks and their myths and the specific lesson, right? Obedience and following directions was important, right? So being obedient, doing what you're told was important. Most likely I would be looking at the Flight of Icarus and Orpheus, Great Musician here. It doesn't have to be though. So that's my introduction for that. So it focuses on the lesson. Then I'm going to introduce each myth. So this is step 2. That's why it's red, because if we look back at our checklist, right, step 2 I did in red here. So we're identifying each text and what I'm going to write about. So if we look at my example, in the myth blank, so I would put the title of the myth, the importance of obedience, that's my lesson, right, was examined through the character, right. And then in a similar manner, the consequences of disobedience were clear in the story of blank and the myth blank. So, I mean, this could really go, this could be the labors of Hercules, right? Because Hercules was obedient, did what he was told, and was forgiven. Consequences of disobedience could be Orpheus or the Flight of Icarus, right? So either one. There are plenty of other lessons, of course, that you can choose from. But so the important thing is that you're putting the title of the myth, you're putting the lesson in here. I had that underlined in both cases for each myth, and then the character that you're going to look at as showing the lesson. Okay, so those 3 things would be required. And then your final closing sentence, the authors of each myth reveal the lesson through the characters' reactions to the events in the story. So that's the writing prompt, right? How does a lesson develop in the story? For writing prompt 2, I used a general statement. So you can mix these up. By the way, you don't have to do this. I could use a question for writing prompt 2 or a definition. I just broke them up so I didn't have to do 9 different examples. The ancient Greeks believed it was important to be obedient to the gods because gods could affect a mortal's life. One god that interfered and affected mortals was Zeus. Okay, so here I make a general statement about, Greek mythology, and then immediately go into which god I'm going to focus on, right? I'm going to focus on Zeus in my essay. One god that interfered and affected mortals was Zeus. His actions towards individuals resulted in the creation of several natural phenomena, such as changing seasons and echoes. And then I'm going to identify my 2 myths. So this is where I go from Zeus and give a hint as to which 2 myths I might have picked. I would say based on this sentence, the student would be picking Origin of the Seasons and Echo and Narcissus, right? And so in both cases, Zeus affected characters in the stories, and the long-lasting effects of that were seasons and echoes. So I'm hinting at which 2 myths that I'm going to pick in the next sentences I'm going to specifically say. It's just kind of a nice way of gradually getting to the information. So in the myth, I might put, origin of the seasons. Zeus's actions affected the character blank. In a similar manner, he affected the character in the myth blank. So I didn't do both sentences exactly the same way. I flip-flopped the order of the character in the myth. But in both, I put Zeus, right? He's the god. I put the title of the story and the character. And then my final closing sentence in each myth, Zeus' impulsive actions resulted in lasting change affecting everyone on the planet. So, and then for writing prompt 3, I chose the definition. Again, I could do it with any writing prompt. It doesn't matter. So penance, a punishment undergone to show remorse for a sin and earn forgiveness. In Greek mythology, characters were often punished by the gods. One deity who punished mortals was the Greek goddess Hera, known to the Romans as Juno. So I picked a general word that relates to being punished, right? And then the next introductory sentence, I tied it in. So I did my word, and then I tied it into Greek mythology, right? And then I tied it into the goddess I'm actually going to focus on, right? 2 myths that look at how she punished mortals are, and then I would give the title of the myth. In the myth blank, punish the character blank. So here I might say in the myth Echo and Narcissus, Hera punished the character Echo. In the myth I'm sorry, in the myth, labors of Hercules, as Juno she punished, and you would say Hercules, right? And many of you were talking about, if you're going to use Hercules as one of your myths, how do you handle that? And I did that right in this sentence right here. So in the sentence where I say which god or goddess I'm referring to, I just threw in her Roman name. So it was one deity who punished mortals, was a Greek goddess Hera, known to the Romans as Juno. So that's all you really have to do, right? And then you specify that in this myth you're going to use the Roman name. And then my concluding sentence, in each myth, the goddess's actions had lasting effect on the character she punished. And I would add this, right, because it's writing prompt 3. It doesn't actually need to be in parentheses because it's writing prompt 3. And were profoundly unfair. Okay, so you just need to add that piece of it for writing prompt 3, whether or not the actions were fair. All right, so you can use these to help you out. And if you have any questions, certainly ask me in class.